Hello, my friends. This is life coach Mike Trugman, and welcome to an episode of Mike's Search for Meaning. I'm after some big questions. Why are we here? What makes a fulfilling life? How can we grow individually and collectively? Each episode, I'll dive deep with leaders who are doing great work in the world and see how they organize their life. Books read, value systems, resources used, and stories that show how each of you can create the life and the world of your dreams. Lindsay, welcome to Mike's Search for Meaning.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited.
I am really thrilled to get into all things relationship with you. We were, before we switched on record here, we were basically talking about how relationships are the building blocks of everything. And we didn't get to this part, but I think of this as like relationship with myself. Like I'm always in some sort of dialogue or relationship with the world. Like there's always my experience and I could shift that. And then of course there's the, how are we relating to others and how are we relating to our romantic partners? So where I would love to start with you is, when did this become something that consumed, it seems like basically your entire life? There might not be a specific moment, but like, when did relationships start to become something that you found yourself drawn to? What was important to you about it? You can answer that in whatever way feels right and best to you.
Totally. Consumed is accurate. I think about relationships all the time. And I was actually having a conversation with my dad recently, and he was talking about how when I was little, it was always like his answer wasn't ever good enough. I always wanted to know like the why, or like, that doesn't make sense. I need to understand what's going on here. Like he said, if he told me that I couldn't go and do something as a teenager, I would say like, okay, that answer's okay, but I really need to understand where you're coming from. And I think just hearing that, I was like, yeah, that checks out. I don't remember that, but that makes sense. And I used to, like when in my very early 20s or late teens would like sit down with really close friends and counsel them in their relationships and talk about both sides of things. So I feel like this has just always been in my head and in my brain. And I really focused on personal growth. I started therapy when I was 20 and I've been in therapy ever since. I will be in therapy until the end of time because I love it so much. And then that really transferred into thinking about, personal growth into relationship growth through the relationship with my fiance. And we've been together for almost 10 years. And in the beginning of our relationship, it was really hard. When we first met each other, I told everybody this is the perfect person in the whole entire world and we will never fight and everything is great. And I can't imagine things going sideways. I just love all of this about him and he just accepts everything about me. And for us, that lasted 2 months. And then we had our first fight and it really just blew the door wide open to a lot of fighting for us. And I'm talking like blow up fights, ugly fights, doors slamming, threatening to break up, raising our voices, lots of unhealthy things. And it would happen often. And then we would not repair and we would just sort of go back to normal. But really everything's just kind of sitting there under the surface, just ready to be poked again. And then we would end up fighting again. So that lasted about 1.5 years and then we broke up. And this is the point where I, for the first time, realized, I had something to do with all of that. Mm-hmm. Because I truly thought if he would just stop doing XYZ, then I wouldn't be doing these things that he doesn't like. I really thought that was it. And as I say it, I'm like, I can convince myself that makes so much sense. Mm-hmm. Makes so much sense now. And it actually doesn't, because when I reflect, I had a lot of these patterns before getting into our relationship. They weren't his fault. But that's what I really realized like I contributed to this and I started to look at myself. We got back together. And that was when I was like, I am not doing that again. We are not doing that kind of relationship again. And that is when I just went hardcore into books, podcasts, research, courses, anything that I could get my hands on to do things differently. So that's the long story.
Yeah. No, there's a lot of different directions we could go from here. Let's start here. When you were 20 and you were like practice counseling or however you would language it, your friends, uh, what drew you to that? And like, what types of things did you start noticing occurring in people when you were counseling them? Or put another way, if we zoomed out more, like, what are the types of things that people tend to talk about when they are opening up about their relationships?
Totally. Yeah. I've never really thought about that. I think a big thing that drew me then was I feel like you guys are unhappy and you don't have to be. Like that would be
Mm,
the thought that I'm having. Like this doesn't really make sense. Like it doesn't have to be like this. Like let's do
mm.
something else because it doesn't have to be like this. And of course, back then, I mean, I've had so much growth since then, but part of that was probably like not looking at my own stuff. And it's like, well, let's just fix other people and deal with that. And I think a big piece of that was just like, this can't be life. Like we can't just do this. This can't be it. And a lot of the things would just be, it is interesting to reflect and think back because then it would just be arguments like we're disagreeing around household things, around cleaning. He doesn't do this, she doesn't do that. Like it would be a lot of that back then. And honestly, that's a lot of what I see with my clients today. It's just there are a lot of like fundamental disagreements about how we move through the world. And those things can feel like real roadblocks when you have two totally different ideas. Like just using houses, for example, if one person really likes to be clean, the other person is comfortable with it a little bit messier, that right there can just feel like a total roadblock. And one of us has to give up our way of living.
One of the things that I was really drawn to about your approach, like a relationship, especially, you could be monogamous, you can be polyamorous. So I guess there are relationships with multiple partners, but for the most part, I'm thinking about a relationship as between one person and another person,
Mm-hmm.
right? And a lot of times when we are in a relationship with another person, we are only thinking about what is occurring in ourselves and what we want. And uh, this wouldn't be the way that we talk about it necessarily, but like how that other person might be an obstruction or that we need to like get them to do the thing that we want.
Mm-hmm.
And I imagine it's very tough to like create an opening where you could shift a narrative like, well, what would it look like if we both won here? Or uh, so I guess where I am drawn to is like, how do you look at creating the healthiest possibilities or contexts in relationship when people are showing up usually probably in unhealthy right, wrong, good, bad types of things. Like how do you look at creating that? It doesn't even have to be as someone who's coaching people, but
Mm-hmm.
uh, I know that's been a big part of my journey as well, is like how do I shift the way that I am being or seeing the relationship as a whole? Are you picking up what I'm putting down?
Totally. Totally.
Okay.
It makes so much sense. And I think, yeah, I don't know what came first, sort of my personal worldview or learning about it in relationships, but now it's kind of all melded together and just kind of the way that I see things. I think like my lens. And I actually get kind of like excited. Like I say that gently because I don't get excited when a couple comes to me and they have like an argument or
Mm,
they have a really differing viewpoint on something. I'm obviously not like, woohoo, let's dive in. But there's like a little part of me that's like, we got this. Like, we are
mm.
going to I know the path here. There is a path here and we never learned this path. So we got this. So that's like that little cheering part of me, while also obviously deeply feeling the pain of that, knowing what it feels like to have blow up fights and
Mm.
sort of what that feels like. And exactly like you said, I always explain it as I like bring my little hands up, and that when we are in an argument or when we want to be right, it's literally hear me, no, hear
Mm.
me, you hear me. That's literally what it is. And until one person leans in and does the hearing, you're going to stay stuck in that. And that's it. That's it. And that's it. But that can be really hard to be the person who goes, okay, I'm going to put my stuff on the shelf. I call it like you're putting it on the shelf. You're not getting rid of it. It's right here on the shelf. You get to lean in and hear Hear your person's experience. Even if it's wildly different than yours, it's their experience. So nothing that you say in this battle is going to change it, battle, quote unquote. So if you can put your stuff on the shelf, lean in, then you're opening the door to possibility, because
Mm.
now your person doesn't have to keep fighting to be heard because they finally feel heard. And I can remember, like, I used to have the belief, I truly believed, I'm just not saying it in the right way.
Hmm.
If I explain this in a different way, and it feels like funny to say that now, but I really believed this, like, oh, I'm just not saying it in words that he understands. There's something missing. I'm gonna say it again. Maybe I'll get a little bit louder. Maybe I'll circle back and bring it up tomorrow. And that was never it. He understands perfectly fine. It was that we were caught in this battle of hear me, hear me. And I just love helping clients, supporting clients to do this so much, because we don't learn how to do this.
Hmm.
I almost feel
Yes.
like we kind of learned that, if I hear you, that means I'm conceding, or I'm saying that I agree with you, or that I no longer have my belief.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm in a couple. You have my attention. I'm sure many others who are listening are in a couple. How do you look at look at creating that opening? So in a moment where it's hear me, hear me, hear me.
Mhm.
It's simple when you're not engaged in the moment to go, okay, I'm going to put my stuff on the shelf. I'm going to really listen and seek to understand my partner. How would I go about actually practicing that, working that when I am stuck in the hear me, hear me? Like, I guess, what are the practical tools that support that opening and being created?
Absolutely. Yeah. And this is why I love like doing YouTube videos and podcasts, because it's long form. It just makes me think of Instagram. I'm like, oh, but there's so many pieces and you can't put in all of the pieces. So this is fantastic. Uh, and such a great question, because you're right. When we are in hear me, our nervous systems are very likely dysregulated. It is great to like hear this when we are calm and regulated. And it's like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. I can put my stuff on the shelf for a bit. And then we get into it and it's like, that's out the window, because when we are dysregulated, we are not using our prefrontal cortex. We are, we lose perspective. So
Mm.
if I'm nice and regulated and connected with my person, I can see other perspectives. I can see that, maybe there isn't only one way. And when we're dysregulated, we just see like tunnel vision. So we kind of lose any positive memories that we have. Our memory is also affected, so that is not helpful. And we feel heightened, our body's reacting, our heart is racing. So it can be really hard in those moments to be like, okay, I'm going to bring it back down. I'm going to see perspective. So this comes to a piece of, what I call my work. I use the love journey process that I created. And one of the pillars of that is called nervous system love. Because without addressing the nervous system, I always say I could give you like perfect scripts. I could tell you all of the info. I could summarize books that I've read. I could do all of this. But if we don't take care of your nervous system, it's gone. It doesn't matter. And we even lose, this one blew my mind when I learned it. We lose access to the part of our brain that has empathy when we're really
Hmm.
dysregulated, which makes all of the sense in the world, because if anybody's ever left an argument and been like, oh, I can't believe I said that, or I can't believe that they said that to me, it's because we literally don't have empathy in that moment. So it's really, really hard to get into someone else's experience. So in saying that, what do? We rewind and we start to look at your nervous system. And the first thing that I do with clients is, I take them through a guided meditation, not the first thing that I do, but around nervous system, but I take them through a guided meditation to really get calm and relaxed in their body so that they can feel what that feels like. And it's really important to know, this is what my body feels like when I'm regulated. Because
Hmm.
most of us aren't thinking that. I know I'm definitely not thinking that. And usually it's like, oh, I feel like light and relaxed and I feel calm and free. And then what we do is think about something like a little bit triggering. Like, even if you think of like, okay, you're driving down the highway and there's a police officer behind you and the lights go on,
Hmm.
or you get a phone call in the middle of the night. And most people can name the part of their body that lights up when you start to think about something triggering. My chest gets tight. or my stomach just flip-flopped, or my jaw got really tense. I squeezed my fists together. These cues, this is what we need to really get familiar with, because what usually happens is we're nice and calm and regulated, and then we get a nervous system cue when our partner triggers us, and then we blow right past it until we're fully dysregulated. It happens in a split second. It's an experience. Like, it's just happening. But what we can do is start to get familiar with that cue and go, oh, I felt that cue. This is my actual cue that I am getting dysregulated. So if I can pause right now and slow down, take some deep breaths, some extra long exhales for my nervous system, then I can come back down here. Because if I'm up here, it takes way longer to come all the way back here. So that's kind of the first place that I start, is recognizing when you're getting into that place, so that you can either stay out of it, or when you're fully in it, it's time to take a loving pause, because generally nothing good happens there.
Yeah. Just going to catch you started to name them, but what are the signs that people can look for if their nervous system is not regulated? And then conversely, if your nervous system is regulated. So you started to talk about feeling relaxed, feeling light, feeling calm. Conversely, maybe like tightness in your chest or your jaw, things like that. Everyone's experience is probably a little bit unique, but like, what do you see as the patterns for when someone is going from regulated? Let's start there. And then what do you see as dysregulated in your nervous system, in your body?
Yeah, I think, even sitting with clients on Zoom, I can often see when they're starting to get a little bit dysregulated, because of course that's going to happen in some sessions. And that just might be like a tense jaw, or somebody starts chewing their lip, or they start playing with a button, or, in person, you see somebody's legs start to shake. Versus if they are sitting there and their body language is open, they're nodding, their tone is, kind and loving and curious, that gives us a hint of what their nervous system is doing. And it's, visually, like consciously, I'm looking for these cues. But in our relationships, we're not consciously looking for them, but our nervous system is looking at those cues. So if, you see your partner's jaw clench, you might not consciously think it, but your nervous system's going, uh-oh, something's wrong. And now you're getting a little bit triggered. So now you're doing your cue, and now she's looking and going, uh-oh, something's wrong, on a subconscious level. So it's these little cues, and it's helpful to know your partner's cues. I know my partner's, I know mine. So I can consciously look for these things now. But those are kind of, the things that I visually sort of see. If that was that the question?
Yeah, no, it's very helpful. I mean, I was asking even just for like more broadly, those were very specific things, like the twiddling with your hair, playing with a button, like those are good indications. And someone sitting back, relaxed, feeling open and calm, like I felt that as you were describing it to me. So there might be more that emerges. I feel like I want to kind of poke at love journey in all of the different angles and make this a really robust conversation that highlights the ways that we like get tangled up in relationships, and then like how do we create the ones that we really want. Because I like you, I haven't phrased this way or even maybe heard another person say it this way, but as I reflect a lot of my life, I think when I saw things weren't working, i.e. like people are married and miserable in their marriage, there was always some part of me that was like, why? Or there's got to be some other better way than that, right? And same with work, same with your career, same with there's a level of tolerance that a lot of people have for things of kind of just, this is the way it is, that there's always at least been a little flicker in me that I'm learning to dial up, that there's so much more than this. And so it feels like we're really starting to open that here. And maybe step one is, let's be really aware and notice what's happening for us, and maybe even distance ourselves. So when you were talking about the love journey, what are the other components that feel important for us to identify, work with in relationships?
Absolutely. Yeah. So it has, you know, when I'm working with a new couple, we go all in. It's 12 sessions, 12 weeks together. It is the love journey process. I have found, you know, just like when I first started this, it would be like, okay, let's do some one-off sessions here and there. And what I found was, okay, I'll see you, we'll make some great progress, and then I see you a month later, and we're kind of back to square one because of how much intention it truly takes to create a new pattern. Just like I always say, if you were to go to the gym and work out and you've gone 3 days this week and you're actually feeling stronger, because it does happen really quickly, you're seeing little changes, you're feeling more energized, and then you don't go again for a month, and then you're back to square one, you're not like, well, the gym's broken, the gym doesn't work. It's like, oh, actually, I just stopped putting in the effort and the intention. So that's what we get to do for our relationships. And and it can be just really helpful to frame it like that, because it can feel like, you know, oh, well, therapy's not working. Well, relationship coaching really isn't working. It's like, oh, am I putting in the intention and effort that's actually required to make changes to something that's been a pattern for probably your entire life? So we really get to dive into that. So the 3 pillars of the process are nervous system love, like I said, healing and changing patterns. This is hilarious. Yeah, absolutely. So we've got nervous system love, we have healing and changing patterns, and we have the commitment keys. And it's not like these are all steps. These are all sort of pillars that intertwine with each other and are the important pieces of changing in our relationship. So thinking about the commitment keys, this piece is, you know, I look at 5 stages of a thriving relationship. There's the romance stage, which is the honeymoon phase that we all know about. On average, it lasts for 2 months to 2 years. And like I said, my partner and I got the whole 2 months out of it, and that was it. And for some, they get 2 years, so that's fantastic. And then after that, what is not talked about ever, ever, ever is the power struggle stage. And after that, commitment, growth, and thriving. But we have to go through a power struggle to get to commitment, growth, and thriving. And when we don't know that, we come out of the honeymoon phase, just like I did in my relationship, and was like, well, we are doomed. This is not supposed to happen. This is awful. This doesn't feel good. If we really loved each other, we'd be able to make this work. I didn't know that this was a predicted stage in the 5 stages of relationships. And, you know, this stage can be full of fighting and arguing, but also for some people, you know, they come to me and they say, we never fight at all, but we don't really know each other. And we don't really feel emotionally connected. Our needs aren't met because we actually don't fight because we don't express our needs, and we just kind of sweep things under the rug. So that's what a power struggle can look like too. And, you know, you see lack of decrease in sex and intimacy. You see repetitive sort of arguments come up. You know, you get into that hear me battle over all sorts of different things. Maybe there's bickering. And what most people do, or what you can do in this stage, is exactly what you were talking about. It's like we just kind of settle, and we're just kind of like, you know, well, you know, we're not as bad as so and so down the street, so maybe this is as good as it gets. Or, you know, this is the relationship that I saw my parents have, so this must be what relationships are. And another option is to break up, like my partner and I did. And another option is to go outside of your relationship and have an affair, not knowing that you're just jumping into the romance stage with somebody else. And if you were to leave your current relationship, get into a relationship with this new person, you're going to hit the power struggle. It might look different, but you're going to hit it. So bringing this back to the commitment keys, when I have people come and work with me and they're in the power struggle, most of the time, that's why they're coming to work with me, what we get to do is choose the 4th option, because they obviously want to stay in their relationships, and that's to jump into the commitment stage. Which for most of us, that sounds like, oh, you know, we got married, we committed, we set our vows. And what the commitment keys really are is stepping out of a place of thinking, you know, if you would just change XYZ, like I said in my relationship, if you would just change all of this, things would be perfect. And this is like a common belief. We want to change our partner. Of course we do. We want things to feel so much better. And most of us have either tried or thought about it for a very long time and seen that it doesn't work. So instead, when we move into commitment, we're just looking at us. And the commitment keys, the questions are, how can I help this relationship thrive? How have I been contributing to what hasn't been working? How can I change and grow? So it is all focused on me. And that is what gets us out of the power struggle. Because when I start to look at my role and I start to do things to help our relationship, which doesn't mean that I just accept everything that my partner does, it means I'm taking 100% personal responsibility for my side of the street, then things can change. And if two people are doing that, amazing. I work with individuals, they can create massive change. If two people are in that, doing that together, of course, real change starts happening.
Can you repeat those three questions again?
Yeah,
Around
for sure.
at the end, the commitment keys? Yeah.
Yeah. So, how can I help this relationship thrive? How
Uh-huh.
am I contributing to what's not working? How can I change and grow?
Those are powerful questions.
I love
Okay.
them. I feel myself getting fired up because I love them
Yeah.
so much.
It's amazing. Okay. So let's just take like a really, let's take a simple, I mean, you can use one that feels personal to you or a commonly occurring pattern that comes up, but let's just take in, I don't know, my partner always leaves the dishes. Yeah, this is like the most common one, but always leaves the dishes in the sink. And I've made it repeatedly clear that it's just easy to rinse them off, throw them in the dishwasher. Uh, I'm I'm judging myself for not coming up with a better example than that. But
It always comes back to dishes for me. I say it all the time, so we're right on the same page here.
how about let's do like a you always or you never. Those seem like they're very common, right?
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
like you're always late. We're running out the door. Something that's important to me. I have a friend's birthday party that I've been excited about. I've been talking about it all week. My partner is running 10 minutes late. You're always late. You don't blah 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 blah, right?
Love it.
Let's
Love
let's do
it.
that. That's better than traffic.
Yeah.
Get out of the way, traffic or dishes. Not
Dishes.
dishes.
You were
I wasn't
thinking
even
traffic too.
another common one.
I just made a YouTube video about traffic. So you're reading my mind right now.
These are like I'm good, Mr. Generic over here. Okay, so
no, this generic is good because this is what people experience. So
fair enough.
Dishes, traffic, and late shows. I bet one of those shows up in most people's relationships.
Yes.
So this late example, and I've used this one before too because it is so common and it's perfect. So imagine, I'll just say, we'll just call husband and wife.
Yes.
Say wife is the one who's stoked for the party. Husband is running 10 minutes late and she's starting to get impatient. And then she starts saying to him, come on, we're late. You always do this. We're never on time. It's so embarrassing. I really wanted to be there early. I've been ready. You had the whole day to get ready. And then he starts getting defensive. And he's like, I don't always do this. I was on time the last 3 places that we went. If you had helped me get ready or told me the time, then things could have gone better. And, you've had all day to get ready and I just got off of work. And now she's going back into it. It has nothing to do with that. You knew what time it was. It just goes on and on. Right now, hear me.
Mm-hmm.
That's what's underneath here. And it's more than that. There's a lot of needs and feelings that are going on. And first, there's like this, they're trying to be heard in their experience. And what they're doing is using really unhealthy strategies to try to get their needs met, which is what we all do. And when we look at the commitment keys, so, if wife was to come and chat with me and talk to me, of course, her feelings are valid. It makes so much sense that she's upset. She, they knew the time. She put in the effort to be on time. She's got the gifts wrapped. She's ready to go. Of course, she's upset about that. She really wanted to be on time. And maybe there have been times in the past too, probably not always, but there have been times in the past where he is late. And when I can really lean in and, of course, validate that because it's true. It just makes sense. And the same is true for if husband came to me. And he was like, I've been working all day and she doesn't give me any grace. And she points out these things like I do it all the time. She doesn't see that I do X, Y, and Z. That makes so much sense. Mm-hmm. Of course he felt defensive. Of course he felt upset about that because he's putting in all of this effort and not feeling seen in other places in their marriage. So that's that one sort of validation piece just from an outsider's perspective that both of what they're saying makes sense. They're just using these unhealthy strategies. And in the love journey process, I call them relationship poisons with love, because poisons hurt our relationship. And relationship poisons are unhealthy strategies to get beautiful, valid needs met. That's what they are. Eye rolling, criticism, defensiveness, shutting down, pointing out what the person does wrong. All of these things, I think there's like, I have a list that I go through with my clients. There's over 70 on there.
Ooh.
And we all have a big list. You know,
Yeah.
I sit and I check off a bunch of these things. And sometimes, like, I do it for myself, like every 6 months. And sometimes I'm like, well, that's new. Where'd that come from? And other times I'm like, oh, yay, I don't do that one anymore. So, so just sort of like naming it, that we get to look at these things with so much love, because we all do unhealthy things. And when we can start to see that underneath that, there's actually beautiful, valid needs there, and we can learn new strategies to do that. So what does this look like in thinking about the commitment keys? Is for that wife, it could be like, you know, she wants, well, all I want is for him to apologize. And I know that he's not going to, and I just want him to get it. For her, what if she could put her stuff on the shelf for just a minute and get really curious about her role? So how did I contribute to what's not working? Well, I was critical. Always and never criticism. That's what they are. Underneath that, beautiful, valid needs to be heard, to be seen, to be on time, for teamwork, togetherness, all these amazing things. And when we use this strategy of this unhealthy pattern of criticism, it actually pushes us further away from those needs. Because I love this example, because I just feel like it really just paints a picture. When she says to her husband, "You're always late, you're never on time, you always do this," he doesn't go, "Oh, my sweet wife just wants togetherness. She just wants teamwork. She just wants to be heard right now. This beautiful woman." That's not what happens. Of course not.
That's what I do, Lindsay.
You are ahead of the game.
Yeah.
It's just, and the same thing goes when he starts getting defensive. She's not going, "Oh, he really just needs to be seen for his best intentions. He just wants to be appreciated for all the things that he does in our marriage and our relationship." Heck no, we're not thinking any of that, which makes sense that we aren't, because we're being met with these relationship poisons. So when we get to see that, oh, this thing that I'm doing, it's actually pushing me further away from teamwork, togetherness, being on time. Like, this criticism is actually pushing me further from those needs. But most of us aren't thinking about what our needs are. We just have the experience. I don't like this. I'm upset. This isn't okay. Which makes sense, because we never freaking learn any of this, which is very unfortunate. So until we choose to, which is the best.
Yes.
So in that, how did I contribute? I was critical. How can I change and grow? I can wonder and look under. So that's what I call this process. I trained with the Center for Thriving Relationships. This is their concept. They are amazing. I love them so much. They are in Indiana, and gosh, they are just incredible. So wonder and look under is this piece of, how can I change and grow? Okay, I can recognize that I had needs. How can I express those in a healthier way? And then the other commitment keys question, how can I help our relationship thrive? I can go own my stuff. When I'm in the commitment stage, I'm taking 100% personal responsibility for my side of the street, not for the entire thing, but my stuff. So if wife goes and approaches husband and says, "I am so sorry that I came at you so hard when we were late. That was not okay. I was being really critical. You're not always late. You don't always do this. And I'm really sorry that I did that. I shouldn't have done that." And then my favorite, mic drop. Leave it there. Because what we tend to do is go, if we do get to that step, which is amazing, often what happens is we say, "But I really wanted to get here on time, and I really wish that you had your stuff together, and it really hurt my feelings that you did that." And with that "but" already, we've just erased everything that we just said. Even if we meant it, our brain hears "but" and goes, "Scrap that." And even if we don't say "but," if she does this beautiful apology and then she says, and this is how I feel, and I wish that you didn't do that, to the other person, it can really feel like you only just apologize so that you could tell me your feelings. Even when that's not true. Even when it's not true, even though I know that you mean it and you're genuine, it can really land that way. And in order to set ourselves up for success, I recommend mic dropping it. Like just knowing, okay, I'm going to leave this. I can talk about the other stuff later.
Mm-hmm.
I can talk about my feelings later outside of this moment, because right now what I'm stepping into is these pieces where I can help my relationship thrive. So this doesn't mean it's still on the shelf. This doesn't mean that you're tossing it and you just have to accept his defensiveness or accept his lateness. It means that you're taking an aligned step towards these things that you would love, the teamwork, the togetherness, the being on time. You're getting to a place where you can actually have that conversation. So that's
Yeah.
what that piece looks like. And it's not easy.
Yeah. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to parrot back the best I can to make sure I understand. And
Love
in turn, hopefully, listener gets another opportunity to play along too.
Amazing.
Okay. So taking 100% responsibility, this looks like owning what was mine in about that, and not making any sort of naming of the impact that it had on me. So this might be, that I noticed that I was really triggered when we were running late. That was on me. That had nothing to do with you. That's my responsibility. Mic drop, something like that, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then there is this is something that could be really interesting to talk more about. Then there is, it sounds like there's an opportunity to then, I don't know if it's through an agreement or some other time that we would talk about it, revisit here's the impact that it had on me, or here's what was occurring for me. Is that, how do you look at that component of, besides just like venting or talking to other people about your relationship?
Totally.
When is an appropriate time after you have taken 100% responsibility and mic dropped and
Mm-hmm.
not made it about, and I'm doing this so that I can say what I needed to say.
Mm-hmm.
Like, when's an appropriate time to start to revisit the impact that it
Totally.
had, or things like that?
Yeah. Yeah. Great question. And a question that I get asked a lot, because that can feel so hard to do, to take that responsibility while you still have stuff on your heart. Like that can be really hard to do. And, as we're talking about commitment, growth, and thriving in a thriving relationship, that conversation might happen all at once. There's that emotional safety where it's like, hey, I'm really sorry about this. Here's what was going on for me. Yeah, I'm really sorry about this. I shouldn't have done that. Here's what's going on for me. Like, you've built up the safety and trust and evidence over time that we can have these conversations. But when you haven't, this is where it can be really powerful to just sort of do the mic drop. And I mean, even in a thriving relationship too, ain't nothing wrong with a mic drop. I do love that. So when we're thinking about bringing up these conversations later, sometimes when you do apologize, you might still be a little bit triggered. So it's probably not a great time to get into, even a 5-minute conversation around it. You just might want to, like, okay, I'm in a place where I still feel kind of frustrated, but I can really see my role, and I'm just going to go own my stuff, but we don't need to talk about it right now. And that, one thing that I will point out, because so many people say this, is people will feel like, if I do that, then I'm just telling husband that what he did was okay. He's going to think that he has nothing to apologize for, which may be true. He may be like, dun, 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 great day, everything is fine, let's go to the party, I'm off the hook. So that can absolutely happen. And that's where it's important that you get to come back to this conversation. And that might look like, later that night. I really am sorry for coming at you. I really want to work on that. I shouldn't have done that at all. That couldn't have felt very good. And so now we're like outside of that moment, and we're doubly owning it. And we're not saying, but we're saying, and it really was important to me that we got to the party on time. And I want you to know that, and it would feel really good if you recognize that. Can we talk about, what this might look like moving forward? Because then you've doubly owned it. You're not in that triggered moment anymore. And like I always say, you could have the perfect script in the world, but your person could still get triggered. And this doesn't guarantee that things are going to go perfectly. And it's much more likely to go in a better direction if you've already owned your stuff and you're in that commitment stage, if you're committing and willing to get really curious. Because say husband in that moment does go, oh, you're bringing this up again. I don't want to talk about this. It was one time. What's the big deal? So when we look at that, he's getting defensive again. So he's using a relationship poison again. If I can notice myself getting triggered and take a nice deep breath and wonder and look under. He has beautiful, valid needs right now. I wonder what they are. Maybe he's tired. Maybe it's for ease. Maybe it's to be seen for his best intentions. He's using a relationship poison to try to express those things. It doesn't excuse it. It can just like really soften our hearts to
Mm-hmm.
know that's what's happening when we do these things. And since I know that I do them, when I see my person do them, I can remind myself, I do this too. It just looks really different because
Mm-hmm.
we have different things that we do. Sometimes it looks the same. But when we can remind ourselves, so just saying that because, it can feel really discouraging when you go and try something like this and you're like, well, that blew up. I went and
Mm-hmm.
apologized and they just got more mad.
Yeah.
That can be really, really hard. And it's a real possibility. It's also an opportunity to drop in and get curious and wonder and look under again.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And again and again and again. Till the end of time.
Minor left turn, but also exactly ties into where this conversation is going right now. How do you define compassion or a compassionate approach? Or like how do you look at that word?
Mm-hmm.
Why is it, or what is so fundamental about it for creating a thriving relationship?
Mm. Well, I mean, even as you just said that, I could feel my heart growing. I'm just like, compassion. Because, gosh, so I use the term compassionately curious a lot. Like, I watched a YouTube video that I did recently when I was editing it, and I said it 5 times in that episode, in a 10-minute episode. I was like, okay, maybe this is going to get a little old. And I also think it's really important. So, the compassionate, like, speaking first, like zooming out, compassionate curiosity for me is if I'm asking my partner something with compassionate curiosity, then it doesn't matter what the answer is, I'm in compassion. So, curiosity, great. But if it doesn't have that compassion with it, there might be some right answers and some wrong answers. But with compassionate curiosity, there's just answers.
Mm-hmm.
There's just answers, and I get to stay really, really curious and in my heart about, I wonder what their experience is. Because their experience is real, whoever it is. It could be my partner, it could be anyone in my life. If I can remain in compassion, and this is that wonder and look under piece. So, you know, I feel like compassion and compassionate curiosity just like meld together, and they are just so together in my brain. And when we think about wonder and look under, it really is the lens in which I want to see the world. And so it goes like beyond my relationship, but to, my extended family relationships, my friends, I was going to say my coworkers, but now that's my cat. But I will have compassionate curiosity with him. and even, I use these examples. Somebody who cuts you off on the road, somebody who is road ragey and you can see that they're yelling in their car, a cashier that you go to at the grocery store and they're kind of miserable. And maybe you get the thought in your head like, oh, well, maybe you shouldn't be in customer service. And, those things can happen. And when we are using this wonder and look under lens, again, it doesn't excuse, it doesn't say like it's okay to behave in this way or it made me feel good. It just allows us to get into compassion, because imagine that I go into the grocery store and yeah, the cashier is kind of rude and they're really dismissive and they're not paying attention and they're just kind of rude. And imagine I leave, and now that's what I'm thinking about, even though like my favorite song was playing in the grocery store, there was some great sales, but now I'm thinking about this cashier. And then I get home, the first thing I tell my partner is, oh my gosh, you wouldn't believe what happened.
Mm-hmm.
Now, how is that impacting me? My nervous system's probably dysregulated, which means I am much more likely to have negative thoughts about myself, my relationship, the world. My negative limiting beliefs are going to be more at the surface than they are if I'm regulated. It's really impacting me. So if instead I can have compassion and go, oh gosh, I wonder what happened to her today. I wonder what's going on in her life, because I really have no idea. And I have had those days where I am walking through the mall when something really hard happened in my life, knowing that my face looks miserable. and knowing that that could be interpreted in so many ways. But I know what went on for me, and that I forced myself to go shopping today because I needed to. Well, maybe I didn't need to go to the mall, but let's say the grocery store.
Sure.
But it's like when we can just really soften, that compassion changes our lives. You know, if you are thinking, because it can be really hard to look at your person and be like, I want to be compassionate for you because maybe things are really, really hard. And maybe you've been struggling for a really long time, and maybe it's really hard to access that. If you can start with you and how it makes you feel, that changes everything. It changes your outlook. It changes how you show up. It is just such an important, oh gosh, it's just such an important lens, and helps, it just shapes how you move through the world. I don't know if that answered your question.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That's, well, you know, there are words like compassion and love can evoke a squishiness sometimes. And what I love about your answer is that it's part of my come from was, what's the practicality in this?
Yeah.
Right? It's very practical to come from a place of, well, if I am more compassionately curious, that actually impacts my mood, the way that I am showing up in my life. That probably makes me a better person to be around at work. It makes me better in my relationship. It makes, so it's very, to use more kind of left brain analytical language, like it improves your performance as a person, right? And so it's actually not very squishy, although it can, that word can evoke that. I think it's a very practical tool. So it did address the question. And really, where my curiosity, I've been taking some notes as the conversation has been progressing. I have the word thriving circled right now, because that's a word that, like, I look at that word as really important in all areas of my life. So if we zoom in on how to create a thriving relationship beyond what we've already spoken about, or if it's useful, we can just zoom in a little bit more on certain areas that we have spoken about. How do you look at creating a thriving relationship, i.e., like, what are the specific actions we can do or work we can do on ourselves that allows thriving to most easily occur?
That is such a great question, and I feel like I just couldn't have planned that segue better myself into healing and changing patterns, the other pillar. So brilliant. And just circling back for a minute of the practicality of compassion. I love that you shared it through that lens, because for me it is pretty squishy, and that's totally okay. Like, I'm content that it is squishy, and it does help my brain see too. I mean, I know I'm saying it in a practical sense, and for me it's like such a felt thing. Like, I just feel it in my body. Like I said, the moment you said the word, my body relaxes, and I'm like, oh, this is where I want to be. And there is, thank you for just highlighting the real practicality, because for a lot of people, if it is just seen as squishy, I love the word squishy. If it is just seen as like squishy, or, oh, this is like too heart-centered, if people aren't into that stuff, then it could be really easy to breeze right past compassion. But instead, if it's like, yeah, my performance is going to be better, I am going to show up as a better human being, that makes so much sense. So thank you so much for like zoning in on that. I love that. And I also want to say, sometimes when I say that, yes, that is the lens that I choose again and again and again. That doesn't mean that it happens in the moment every time. I have wonder and look under written on my fridge, because that is it. I want it in my brain. This is how I want to see the world. And then in those moments when I don't, and when I do find judgments pop up, when I do find myself getting frustrated, that's what I just get to come back to. So yeah, I just want to highlight that, like, sometimes I worry that I'm like, oh, I'm compassionately curious all of the time, and everything is perfect in Lindsay's world.
Lindsay is a human being after all.
Or at least Lindsay knows. Don't worry, Lindsay knows. Yes, indeed. So circling forward, going forward to, healing and changing patterns. Amazing. So yes, what a thriving relationship looks like. When I think about it, it's like, it's the romance stage, like all the shiny bits of the romance stage, but with depth. It's like, yes, we get the love and the attraction, and I feel so good to be around you, and we really complement each other. And in that, there's trust, there's safety, there's this feeling of you got my back and I got your back, and we're in this together. We can have the hard conversations. We can move through life together. You're my best friend and you're my person. And, sex and intimacy is such a big thing as well. And when we're in the power struggle, for most people, they can't even talk about it, which makes sense because if you can't even talk about, the dishes without things going sideways, of course, when it comes to really tender things like sex and intimacy, that those conversations are going to go sideways too, which means you both get further and further away from what you may have envisioned, what you wanted in your marriage with sex and intimacy. So in a thriving relationship, not only can you have a fulfilling sex life for yourselves, but you can also talk about what that is and what that looks like and how that makes you feel. So thriving for me, I mean, emotional safety is just like what is flashing in my being right now. Just emotional safety, that trust, that connection. And part of doing that, wonder and look under, yes, it is looking at our unmet needs, and it's also thinking about, our wounds and our hurts and the feelings that are under there. And I will have people say, they'll come to coaching and they'll say, I don't want to go into my childhood. Like, I don't want this to be therapy. I don't want to do a deep dive into this. They either, it feels too tender, it feels too raw. They don't see the relevance. They just don't want to. There's so many reasons why. And the truth is, you don't have to go really, really deep. And it is going to come up because it's impacting, it's creating the ways that we show up in our relationships. So part of wonder and look under is recognizing, okay, let's take that example of the people being late. Maybe for husband, let's say, for husband growing up, let's go even outside of being late. For husband growing up, he was criticized by his parents. That was the way of relating. He never heard anything good. He didn't hear what he was doing well. He wasn't cheered on. What he heard, if he got 5 A's and 1 B, he heard about the B. He would be told, you never do this. You're always so loud. You're always ruining our family functions. You never. He's hearing criticism often. And he has learned, maybe as a child, that, say he's getting criticized a lot. So he learns that when I defend myself, so when I say, oh, actually, it was my brother that did it, or I didn't mean to do that, or that wasn't what I was thinking, or whatever that thing is, that it kind of ended the criticism. So maybe he puts that blame on somebody else, just like he's doing when he's late today. So today he's saying, well, if you had reminded me, if you had let me know, that maybe because as a child, that actually worked really well. Whenever he put that blame on somebody else, and whenever he said, no, it was my little sister that did it, or it was my little brother, then they were the ones who took the heat. And for a child, this is brilliant. Like, what a brilliant strategy he came up with to stay connected to his parents, because that is all we want when we are little on a deep body, soul living level. Our parents keep us alive. Our caregivers keep us alive. That is it. We need to stay alive. So our connection to them means life or death on, a deeper level. Little kids are not consciously thinking this, but on a deeper level, that's what it means. So he learns the strategy of, this can keep my connection. They stop criticizing me. Yes, maybe they go and criticize somebody else, but they stop criticizing me. So I have learned that this keeps me connected. Again, subconsciously, this pattern builds over time. Now, as an adult, his wife comes to me and says he always gets defensive. Doesn't matter what I do, he just gets defensive. And when we can really soften and get curious about this and get curious for him, like, do you have any memories from childhood? Oh yeah, my parents. So just, I would just blame my brother and stuff all the time. Of course you're still doing that as an adult. That makes all of the sense in the world. From 0 to 7, your brain is literally just a sponge creating these new neural pathways and paths. So we continue to do these things. So the healing and changing patterns is where we can look at that and go, oh, that's why I do that. That's where that comes from. And for his wife to be able to say, whoa, that makes so much sense. I really see that. And I see why when I'm critical, you get so triggered. I see why when I use the word always, that brings something up in you, because it's not that moment. He's getting zapped back to childhood in that moment. So even in just saying what I just said there, we didn't have to go super deep into childhood. But when we can draw these connections and recognize that they are impacting us now, that can really help heal and change those patterns. Like that, what I just said right there, just that can be so healing for both of them. Mm-hmm. Side note, I also love to do the deep healing work, but we don't have to.
Yeah. Well, I'm here for it. As you were talking to me, I was thinking, well, here's a different direction we could go to, where there's the way that was language was pretty overtly critical, which is, parents who are pretty incessantly looking for if you got 5 A's and 1 B, we're going to criticize the B. There are probably many, many examples of parents who it's less overt. There's sneaky expectations. There might even be unsaid or felt things that the children experience as they're growing up that, as you were saying, that just kind of becomes the way that we behave in similar situations throughout our life. So I don't know, an example that's coming to mind for me was my parents would sometimes get stressed about money.
Absolutely.
Right? Like it's not, I never felt like, it wasn't like, oh, money is only bad or money is only good, or like I felt really criticized around money or anything like that. But something that I've been working through in my own life, it's an unfinished product, but is how do I look at money, and like, what is my relationship to money, and what did I learn from my family about what money is? Mm-hmm. And so I guess I'm naming that as an example. There's other things, there's conflict, like how did my parents relate to each other in conflict that had nothing to do with me per se, but I saw it occurring and experienced something. And so I guess just setting the table for how do we look at healing in areas that are maybe more subtle, less obvious, but nonetheless feel really real to us as we are experiencing them.
Mm-hmm. I'm so glad that you named that, because I do have so many clients who will say, I had a really good childhood. Like nothing, it wasn't that bad.
Yeah,
and for some people, that can mean, they can have their own version of what that means. So like, no one screamed at me, so it wasn't that bad, might be that version. And for others, it may be like, truly, I felt loved, I felt cared for. And one of my favorite psychologists always says, like, your kids are going to need therapy. It's just a matter of how much they will need, because it's just impossible that we're not going to be impacted by things like, just like what you're saying. And that example that you gave, I'm curious for you, like if you even remember, but going from a place of like, oh, I feel stressed around money, to recognizing like, oh, my parents used to get stressed about money. Like that awareness there, can you remember like sort of that moment or when that shift happened of like, oh, we can actually kind of do like, this is more information now. I can actually like move in a direction now.
Well, what's coming to mind for me, several years ago, I would say 5 to 7 years ago, maybe 8, I started even just the awareness that money was something that we had beliefs. It wasn't this kind of, what's the way to say it? The way that I viewed money wasn't the truth about money. That like, once that started to become something that made sense to me, and that I was projecting all sorts of my own beliefs and stories onto money, it helped me to, that in and of itself was a big insight that allowed me to work with my relationship with money, or what did I think about people who had money or didn't have money. It used to live in me as some level of truth that like the people who had more money were better than, or were like evil and greedy.
Mm-hmm.
And so identifying that that's a myth and not a fact, not a truth,
Mm-hmm.
that already opened the door. So that, and then it's, the way that I look at it now is, what's the relationship that I would like to create or have with money?
Mm-hmm.
Or like, if I were to write my own story about money, what would that look like? And living that. And I like that notion for any amount of things in our life, like coming from a place of, I can create it or I can choose it, rather than this is what was handed to me,
Mm-hmm.
which I,
Mm-hmm.
I suppose started to answer the question that I posed myself. But
I love it. I love it. It's so perfect. Thank you. Yeah, I'm so, so glad that you shared, because this is something real. This is something that you've experienced. And this is, it's kind of like we can put sort of these, almost like in my head, it's just like kind of putting these templates on different areas of our life,
yes.
of like, I'm putting the healing and changing patterns onto money right now. And
Mm.
it's like that moment of awareness that this is not a truth and there's something underneath the surface. For me, like going back to relationships, it's like that moment of recognizing, oh, it's not just you think this and I think this. There's more here. There's unmet needs. There's wounds. This comes from somewhere. That alone starts that path of healing and changing patterns.
Mm.
So it's so beautiful that you can like sort of mark that and recognize. And again, yeah, this will apply to all of the areas in our life where we want it to look differently than it does right now. If we just
Mm-hmm.
like pop that template on and start to get curious, because our brain does tell us things as truth. Our brain
Yeah.
doesn't naturally go, oh, the story I'm telling myself is. Our brain is like, facts, facts, facts. We're like, I believe it. I believe it. So yeah, I don't remember the original question, but I
Yeah.
think I think that's great.
The original question, and we can move on if it feels like it's already been adequately addressed. But the original question was around, when there's more nuance to the story that we are telling ourselves, how do we work it, or shift it, and move towards thrive? Like all of this under a lens of like, how do we move towards thriving
Yeah,
in the area that we want to heal?
yeah. Yeah. So when it is things like people looking back and thinking, I can't, I had a pretty good childhood. So often, like most of the time, there are, processes that I go through within our sessions. But even when you are thinking about something like that and you're thinking, okay, this is the thing that feels upsetting to me right now, or this is the thing that feels triggering to me. So for wife, it may be like the late thing, because for some people that wouldn't feel triggering. So for her, if this is a consistent thing where being late amps up her nervous system, then we get to look at that with so much love, and she gets to get really curious. And it's kind of like naming it. Okay, this is upsetting. This is how it makes me feel. What are the stories I have around this when I am late, or when my husband is the cause for us being late? And we kind of get to pick it apart. And then we just sort of land on, like, I just like to ask, does this remind you of anything from your childhood? And when you sit with that, 9 times out of 10, I want to see even higher than 9 times out of 10, a memory pops up. And
Mm-hmm.
I always trust what that memory is. It may seem totally obscure and like this doesn't make sense, but when we explore it, it's like, oh, I can definitely see how this is tied there. So it really requires that curiosity. And I do like somatic healing sessions around certain things. So if somebody has these patterns that they're stuck in and they would love to have a different experience around it, we actually, find certain memories and go back and do inner child work and healing
Mm.
around that thing, so that we can actually rewire things so you can have a whole new experience around it. So there are layers and depths of the work that we can do, and it just kind of depends on the person. And I think just an important takeaway for this is, even when it feels like, even when you can say, I felt loved and things felt good in my childhood, there's still opportunity to get curious, because your childhood created most of the patterns that you're in today. So
Yeah.
it's just bringing in that compassionate curiosity.
Love it.
Mhm.
Let's shift a little bit into misconceptions around, it could be around breakdowns, and it can be around misconceptions about what makes for a healthy relationship. Like, this is a silly one to say out loud, especially on someone who's hosting a show that invites in transformation and has a career that invites in transformation. But I used to really think about relationships as like they exist without needing to be worked on or created. Not fully, but there was some part of me that believed like, oh, it just should be easy. If you're in a good relationship, it's not about like digging in together and making the relationship you want to happen.
Mhm. I had
Which
that
is
view too.
it's a very common misconception,
Yeah.
right? Like, it shouldn't be this hard.
You're
So
not alone.
I'm curious, like, as I pose that question around misconceptions about relationships, what comes up for you? What are the things that you see as blind spots that people have about relationships?
Yeah. I mean, I think let's just start there because it is so common that, we shouldn't have to work at this. If we're going to coaching or therapy, that means that something is drastically, brutally wrong and we're just doomed. Like I thought it in my relationship, we're absolutely doomed. One of my beliefs on top of that was that relationships shouldn't have conflict. That is what I thought. That the gold star of a thriving relationship is that you don't have conflict, which
Me
I now
too.
know absolutely incorrect. And I believed that to my bones. Like that
Uh-huh.
was something I really believed. So I feel like those two kind of go together in a sense. And the truth is that anything, I mean, we don't learn how to do this stuff. A1 A1 B2 we don't learn how to do this stuff ever. So how would we know to have a relationship with a completely unique individual who has an entirely different life experience than I am and as much than I do, and as much as I can know about my partner's upbringing and all of the things, I wasn't there, so I can't really know. Like I can't, he doesn't even know, I don't even know, like we don't remember, we remember like this much of what happened. So it's just in us, and we're bringing these two people together who have just wildly different experiences of life and just expecting that, like, all right, go to it, have a great time and just like get along. And we don't learn relationships, we don't learn communication, we don't learn nervous system stuff, like we don't learn any of this stuff. So it makes all the sense in the world that we struggle and that we end up in the power struggle stage, and for a lot of people just stay there or just break up and get into it again and again and break up again and again. And for anything that we want to get better at in life, when I talk about coaching, it's like we go and we get support in that thing. If I wanted to learn how to play the guitar, I guarantee you that I am not going to learn that from watching a YouTube video. I am going to need somebody to show me what to do. And I've gone to the gym before and got a personal trainer to teach me how to use all of the machines because I'm just looking at them. I'm probably using them incorrectly. So, that just makes me think of when I first started working on our relationship, I would read relationship books, not knowing that my pure goal in reading it was to confirm that I was right and to change my partner. So I'm reading the book and I'm doing things in the book, but with the wrong intentions without even knowing it. And that's kind of, if you go to the gym, okay, I'm on the machine. I don't know what machine this is, but I'm on the machine and I'm doing it wrong. So I'm not actually getting anywhere until I get a coach or a trainer who's like, this is what we do. So anything that we want to get really good at, it makes sense to get support. It's actually not supposed to be easy. Like this power struggle stage is a literal predicted inevitable stage that we run into. So that alone right there is proof that it's not just supposed to be all sunshine and rainbows, and that it takes effort and intention. It takes loving with intention. It takes just really, really showing up. And that's what anything takes. So and it's definitely, that's like such a common myth. So I'm glad that you brought that up, and I'm so with you in having that before.
What are some other ones? Like, I was combing through your YouTube videos, and some of them have these very catchy titles that are, what was the one that just came to mind? like appreciation is breaking down that's not quite right, but like
Oh, right.
the
Stop appreciating your wife.
stop appreciating your wife. It's like, whoa, this is an interesting one. And of course I watched the 14-minute video, and it's got all sorts of useful practical, but like I think that there are certain ways that there are echoes of it probably in what we've spoken about already, but like there are ways that we are doing things without recognizing that there's some other ulterior motive behind it.
Mm-hmm.
And appreciation might be one of them, but like, so what are the other things that you flag or notice as well intended but don't have the benefit that we would like them to have in the relationships?
Such a great question. I love it so much. And just for like anybody, do not stop appreciating your wife. That is not that is not the message. Go to the YouTube and watch a video. Yes, because just like you're saying in that video, it's like we maybe go and appreciate, but then on the end of it, I say, "Oh, I really appreciate that you took out the trash today. You never do that." It's like, I just ruined the appreciation. But what I did there was I wanted to feel seen in that I take out the trash all the time. So that's my unmet need underneath this little criticism that I throw in at the end, but I've just ruined the appreciation. It doesn't feel good anymore. So well-intentioned, truly it is. And we're going about it in a way that actually breeds disconnection instead of connection. So another thing is, and this is absolutely something that I did, is believing that, communication that's the number one thing that I hear. We need to work on our communication. Like when I ask, what problems you have in your relationship or what is it, it's a communication problem. And I would literally, so I went to my therapist for like very regularly. And before I had recognized that I had a role in things, I was focused on trying to change my partner. She would try to like bring me back to my stuff, but I just kept bringing us back to that. And we would write literal scripts in my therapy sessions because I'd be like, okay, this is a recurring fight that keeps coming up. And I know it's going to come up again. So let's get it down. What can I say? So we would like role play it. I would practice it. I would have the script on my phone. I would read it. I would be ready. I'd be like, I got this. And then it would come up again. My nervous system would get activated. I would do the same old things. And it would be like, crap. And I would go back to her and she would always say to me, so I say this to my clients now, don't worry, you'll get another chance to use it. Great. Thanks. She's amazing. I love her so much. So communication. So when I talk about communication, because this is just such a huge misconception, yes, it's important. Of course, it's important to use, compassion, curiosity, and loving tone and the language that we use, like but versus and. These things are important. And when we think back to when we first got together and we're in the honeymoon stage, no one has problems communicating then. It is easy. It is so easy. You laugh. You're not taking jokes like in a way that feels like a personal attack. It feels you can bring things up and it goes well. It's like, when you're in the honeymoon phase and everything feels great, you can maybe bring up something that doesn't feel good and it goes really smoothly. And that's giving you that little boost of like, I knew it. We are in the perfect relationship. And then we get into the power struggle stage, where now, there's not only is the chemistry changing in our body, like the dopamine's chilling out, and we are getting into real life and our patterns are coming up, and we're also wanting our needs to get met versus just focusing on like, oh, I love this person, I'm going to meet all their needs. So we get into the power struggle stage. And with the communication piece, it's not like all of a sudden we just forget how to communicate, because you could communicate before. What's happening now is the emotional safety isn't there. The trust is breaking down. You're feeling disconnected. You're, like I said, like the body chemistry is a huge thing. We are literally high on love drugs in the honeymoon stage. We are flying high. Rose-colored glasses. If you see something that your partner does and you're like, well, I don't really know how that's going to work long-term, but it'll be fine, I'm sure. It's literally like, that's what we think. I see, when I see people in life going through the romance stage, I'm like, what a fun time like, to be blissfully in that stage. So that piece is huge. When that goes away, of course, we're starting to like see more clearly now and question things. So it is it is not that you need to learn how to communicate again. It's because, like I said, I had the scripts, they just didn't work. It's that we need to now look at, how do I build up the emotional safety now that all the love drugs have worn off? Now I need to create safety. How do I build that up? So how we do that is through nervous system love, commitment keys, and healing and changing patterns. We're really building that emotional safety by building that trust and showing each other that, we can get through hard things, that you can bring things up to me. And we have this, there's something called the love account. The Gottman Institute calls it the emotional bank account. If you have a nice full love account where you've been doing positive things often, like, appreciations and speaking each other's love languages and being really intentional with hellos and goodbyes and good mornings and good nights. These are really high impact moments of the day. If you are looking for each other's best intentions, if you are pointing out strengths and what people do well, if you have this cushion of love, your communication on this alone is going to go so much smoother, because there is that positive regard for each other. Like, I know that you're a good person, I trust you, versus if you don't have any of that and your love account is running on empty or really low, you don't have any of that to fall back on when something challenging comes up. So there's no cushion there. It's like this challenging thing came up. Now I'm bankrupt in my love account. And all I can remember from the past week or the past month or the past years is you criticizing me, and we don't point out what each other does well, and we kind of scroll on our phones and ignore each other. Like, I have this whole empty love account. So now communication feels really hard because I'm really reactive. So building that emotional intimacy and working on our nervous system is actually the piece that makes communication, it makes the scripts work a whole lot better. And it makes that communication, it makes you able to have these conversations instead of getting lost in the hear me, hear me.
Yeah. Okay. There's two more places that I would love to go before we start to wind down. Maybe more, but two for sure. One's the love account. Checking in on the love account. I hear the love account as, it doesn't have to be small, but I hear it as kind of the simple, regular, daily ways we can really see and acknowledge our partner in a way that is meaningful to them. Is that?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. The Gottman Institute calls it small things often. That's their motto.
Okay. Yeah. So what are some common examples of small ways that we can meaningfully contribute to our relationship love account?
Well, I talk about high impact ways because we could be doing certain things and they're not as impactful. So why not put our time and energy into things that are really, really impactful? And love languages is a big one. I know it's controversial. I know that some people hate it. I will say that anecdotally, in my coaching, it has been impactful for every single, and I mean it, every single couple individual that I've worked with. It's been impactful, and it's been a game changer in my own relationship. So anecdotally, love the love languages. They are not the be all end all. It is not like if you just speak love languages, everything is perfect. They're nuanced, of course, and they're huge. So say, my partner's love language is quality time. Mine is words of affirmation. If I am consistently speaking words of affirmation to him and thinking, I am killing it, I am the queen of relationships, I am the best partner ever. And over here, he's like, I don't feel loved, I don't feel appreciated, I don't feel seen, because love languages go beyond how we feel loved. People will say to me, I don't feel appreciated. And when we get down to it, often it's because their person isn't speaking their love language. Because if you appreciated me, you would spend quality time with me. If you appreciated me, you'd be doing acts of service around the house. If you appreciated me, you'd touch me on the arm when you walked by. You'd touch me on the leg in the car. If you saw me, if you loved me. So this is where we can get really high impact, because low impact is speaking the wrong love language. At really low impact, it could be doing the inverse, and it could be draining the account. Like, okay, I'm sick of your words, just spend some time with me and care about it. And if we are actually speaking the love language, we're like I have clients who are like, cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching. They're like, we're really putting this in the love account, which is great. So that's one way. Love that. And you can take the 5 love languages quiz online. You can ask your partner. When I talk to people about asking their person, I recommend, it's almost like mic drop again. It's asking from a place of, I want to know how to love you better. And I recognize that I don't even know what your love language is. Would you take this quiz for me? And then the mic drop is, we don't want to jump in with, here's my love language, because then it can feel like we're only saying that so that we get ours spoken to. That could be a conversation for a different time. And I feel like, people might hear that and think like, is it really that bad if I share what mine is? It's not bad at all. Of course you want to be spoken to in your love language. It's just looking at setting you up for success in being heard and getting to find out what your person's love language is, knowing how our brains work and knowing how we get in our relationships. So love languages for sure. The intentional reunions and departures, this is huge. So the good mornings, hellos, goodbyes, good nights. These moments literally prime what happens after for disconnection or for connection. And, so when you wake up in the morning, if husband, we're just playing with husband and wife here, if husband is, I was going to say reading his newspaper because it's the 1990s, he's looking on his phone, he's scrolling his phone, he's got his coffee, he's scrolling his phone, wife walks down, starts grabbing her coffee, and he's like, and she just kind of mumbles, that right there already, you're in these moments. So if we think like way back, this is the moment when you're poking your head out of the cave and looking for a saber-tooth tiger. If there isn't one there, you can feel safe. If there is one there, your nervous system goes, there's a saber-tooth tiger there. I feel like your nervous system does more than go, again.
Oh, drats.
Shoot. So your nervous system probably goes, holy crap, this is a problem. So now we are primed to look at these reunions and departure moments as, am I safe or am I not safe? And safe doesn't mean saber-tooth tiger. Safe means connected to my person, because like we talked about, connected to my caregiver in an adult turns into connected to my person. This is my sense of safety and aliveness on a subconscious, like on a nervous system deep level. So in the morning, if that has already happened, the moments that happen after that are impacted by what just happened there, versus wife walks down, husband puts down his phone, says, good morning, I made you coffee. And she goes, thank you. What happens after is now primed with connection. So that took 2 seconds for me to say. And this is the same with goodbyes. How often, I talk to couples and they're like, yeah, I always just kind of yell goodbye. But with my kids, I'm like, goodbye, have the best day ever. I really get in there and do that positive departure. Innocently, this happens in our relationships that just kind of takes a backseat. Life is busy. Like, let's be real. So this is where that intention comes in. If we can lean in, take that 10 seconds even to just stop what we're doing, look at each other, say, I love you, say, have a great day, leave on that positive note, versus yelling it up the stairs, didn't even see you this morning, and now I get in my car, the day is primed differently. Again, this happens with the hellos, the goodbyes, the good mornings, good nights. These are really, really high impact moments. We really remember these moments. And this is even for like I talk to people about a quick phone call in the day, quick phone call on a lunch break. Oh, you wouldn't believe how my day is. Already the phone call is primed for, because what if wife was in a really good mood on the other side of that, but now, So instead, if we just lift it up for a minute and be intentional with that point when we connect, then we can have that conversation, but it's going to look different. So that's another way to fill a love account. Do you want more? I got way
Sure.
more days.
Oh yeah. Let's keep them going. Well, observation, and then we can keep going with what's occurring to me right now.
Yeah.
And let's go back to performance, because I think we all want to perform well. You can look at relationships and any other area. We want to perform well. A lot of high performance is created in the seemingly, we'll go air quotes, mundane, smaller moments. I am thinking about probably what makes a professional athlete, for example, really stand out is their willingness to lean into each of the air quotes, again, mundane moments as real opportunities to sharpen the sword, to lean into their craft. And in a relationship, we get to do this. That's what's occurring to me, is that I guess it's maybe a thing in our society. The sweeping gesture is looked at as like
Yeah.
a way to really make a big impact on your relationship.
Hmm.
And I love how simple it is. To the emotional bank account is mostly drawn upon really simple but can be profoundly connective moments. And that's something that, like, who can't make a little difference with something like that? That really
Hmm.
empowers all of us.
Yeah, and I love how when you're hearing that to you, that feels like doable and easy and like, yeah, I can lean in and do that. It takes seconds.
Yes.
So I love that. And exactly what you're saying, it's like if you are not doing small things often and you're like, okay, we really need a date night. We hear about date nights all the time. And then you plan this date night. Well, if you're not doing the small things often, then maybe you get in an argument on the way to dinner, and now
Hmm.
you're at dinner and you both keep grabbing your phones and flipping them over and checking. Maybe there's nothing to talk about. It doesn't feel good. So it's like, yeah, the big sweeping gesture of the date night, and the intention is there. It's like we want to reconnect. But if you haven't been doing these things to connect all the way along, then the date night could go totally sideways, which can then feel really, really horrible. And I know I've had those, like when I say arguing on the way to the dinner, been there. It feels
Absolutely.
awful. We cut out this time. This is quote unquote supposed to be connecting and beautiful and loving, and it isn't. So that hurts even more in that moment. So yes, these small things often, they're so important. And speaking of mundane, appreciation not only for the above and beyonds, but for the mundane.
Yes.
Because my gosh, like I said, taking out the garbage and making dinner, doing the dishwasher. Maybe these are things that you do every single day. And for some people, what I hear is, I don't want to thank my husband for unloading the dishwasher. That's just something that our family needs to have done, and I made dinner. Or I don't want to thank my wife for making the kids' lunches because they need to eat lunch. I was at work late, so I couldn't do it. It just needs to get done. So I completely understand that. It can feel redundant. It can feel repetitive. Yes, these are absolutely things that need to get done. And what I like to do is like shift away from, I'm thanking you for doing this thing, into, I see you.
Mm.
And when I tell you that I appreciate that, what I'm saying is, I see how you contribute to our lives, to our family. Yes, we're talking about the dishwasher. It doesn't matter. If he unloads a dishwasher, I didn't have to do it. That absolutely contributed to my life. That
Hmm.
allowed me to do whatever I was doing, or to just relax or not think about that thing. Like, what a glorious sound when you hear someone else unloading the dishwasher. That's fantastic. Of course, I appreciate that.
So good.
It's so good. I know I don't have to do it. So I really lean into like getting away from the thank you and more of the I see you.
Hmm.
And when we feel seen, so if I feel seen, if my partner starts telling me all of the ways that he appreciates the things that I'm doing in our day, I am going to do them more. I am going to look for other ways that I can contribute, especially as a words of affirmation girl. I'm like, give me the words of affirmation. I'm just going to keep doing all of this stuff because it's this positive upward spiral. You're
Uh-huh.
getting, you're having these things done that contribute to your life. I'm hearing how wonderful it is. That's fantastic. And I'm also doing things that I need. And it also, yeah, I just feel seen, and it increases my mood. It
Hmm.
changes how I show up. If I'm not hearing, things that I do well, if I'm only hearing things that I'm not doing well, quote unquote, then that's going to have a very negative ripple effect in my relationship. So, appreciation. I did a YouTube video and I thought about my partner and I had seen each other for, I think it was 10 minutes that morning. And I just listed off, there were 20 things that I could appreciate in that 10 minutes. And
Hmm.
and it feels so good. It just feels so good to appreciate. And we want to feel seen. If I
Yes.
if I spend the whole day cleaning the house while he's at work and he gets home and doesn't say anything, I just want to feel seen for that. I don't need a trophy, I don't need a parade, I don't need an award. I just would love to feel seen and known for
Yeah.
what I've done. So, appreciation, huge love account filler, especially if you have a words of affirmation person in your relationship too.
Are there any other quick ones that come to mind before we shift towards the end of the conversation today?
Absolutely. 6-second kisses and 20-second hugs. So these ones,
Mm,
I know in some relationships that physical touch is not on the table. And for that, I don't recommend, just leaning right into this if that is not something that happens in your relationship. There would be deeper work to do around that first. And if you do hug and if you do kiss, when we do a 6-second kiss or a 20-second hug, it literally decreases our cortisol, our stress hormone, and increases our dopamine. And you can feel it. And I love it. Like in a 20-second hug, count to 20. As you get close to 20, you feel yourself sink into it. And it's just like this release, and it feels so good. And be playful with the kisses. Like it doesn't matter. You can just like touch your lips together. That's it. And when you count to 6 and make it fun, you are literally changing your physiology in 6 seconds. So when people say, like, oh, we don't have time to connect. Like if you have 26 seconds, if you have 6 seconds, you have so got time, as long as, like I said, physical touch is in your relationship. And if you have a physical touch partner in the relationship, this is going to be even more impactful. But just knowing that, those things can become pretty routine, like a quick peck goodbye, peck love you, versus, okay, bring it in for the 6-second kiss, look you in the eyes, say, I love you with my heart, and then move on. That's so different. It really
hmm
fills the love account and primes those reunions and departure moments too.
hmm Well, I was going to ask about conflict and healthy conflict. I share the same story, or I carried the same story, that a good relationship, a healthy relationship, a thriving relationship conflict wouldn't exist, and it would
Mm-hmm.
be easy peasy, and everything would be rainbows and butterflies. And so, if there's space, we could talk about how you look at healthy conflict,
Mm-hmm.
and or I'm going to set the table for you, or maybe just hand the microphone over to you would be a more accurate way of saying. Is there anything that feels like a more appropriate, or the place that you would like to bring this conversation to a close,
Mm-hmm.
before I ask just a couple of quick hitter questions at the end?
Yeah. Yeah. I think I could touch on the conflict and like a landing place, because I
Let's do it.
think, yeah, I think with the healthy conflict for me, because yes, that's absolutely what I believed. Like we shouldn't fight. We should just like move through things easy breezy, no problem. And the reality is that in a thriving relationship, you grow through conflict.
hmm
So the Gottman Institute calls, I don't love this, but they say the masters and the disasters of relationships. And they say that it's not that the masters don't have conflict. They could even have a big, ugly fight. It's that they repair.
hmm
But in a disaster, again, I don't love that, but I'm just quoting them. The disaster relationship, they don't come back and repair. They don't learn from it. They don't grow through it. So in conflict now, my partner and I, absolutely, we have a thriving relationship. I consider that we have a thriving relationship. And it makes my heart so happy to say that, because 10 years ago, 9 years ago, it was absolutely the opposite. And I never could have imagined that. And we still have conflict. Sometimes we have big fights, and other times we have small arguments that I'm like, high five, that would have been days long 8 years ago. So
Yeah.
we are amazing. That feels so good. So grateful we are doing the work. So, in that, I don't like the conflict when it comes up still. I would rather not. And what I know now is I have enough evidence that we are always going to come back and
Mm.
talk about what happened. We are going to wonder and look under. We are going to share our experiences. We are going to hear and validate each other. We are going to move through it. Even if it is the same damn thing that we have argued about so many times, there's always another layer. There's always something new to learn there, of like, because sometimes I'm like, oh, shoot, I did that thing again. And now we fought about it in the same way again. But then when we have this conversation after, I'm like, oh, good. There was another piece. This isn't the same repair conversation. We got another bit of information from me or from him, and we get to grow through it.
Mm.
That's the difference. So it's really, it's really that coming back together and moving under the surface. That's what it's all about. Like if we stay in the surface, we're stuck. We're just in the
hmm
power struggle. So yeah, that's kind of healthy conflict in my eyes. Does that make sense?
Yes. And then, is there any other place that you would like to land this? If not, I just have, I think, one or two more
Mm-hmm.
questions for you that I ask at the end of every interview.
Absolutely. I think, if somebody is listening to this, I would imagine most people are listening to this without their partners. And if you are listening with your partner, amazing. If you're listening on your own, also amazing. So what I just want to share with you is a lot of the work that I do, I work with individuals because individuals can make change. We get the messaging over and over and over that your partner needs to want to change. They need to be in on this with you. And yes, that's true to a certain extent. And if your partner's not there yet, it's pretty hopeless to think that they have to be. So for me, I got a relationship coach on my own after we got back together because my partner didn't want to join in on things, which is a whole nother story. He actually, it was my approach was not very welcoming. So turns out he is into this, and we did get to work through this together, but I never would have known it back then because of the lack of emotional safety in our relationship and ability to talk about anything. So one person leaning in, even if you're the person listening to this and you're like, okay, I'm going to start filling the love account. What my individual clients find is they start sharing appreciation regularly, getting creative with it, not saying the same thing every day, bringing in that love. And I'll get messages from them saying, I just got a text of appreciation out of the blue. And that's what gets to happen when you start to shift things. One person, like your marriage, your relationship is a system. If one person changes that system, the whole system changes. And if you just imagine in that criticism defensiveness example, if the criticism changes, the defensiveness changes. I'm not saying you caused it, but that is a pattern together. If the defensiveness changes, the criticism changes, not saying you caused it. So one person can really lean in. That's what a lot of my content is speaking to, because I was in that place and I know so many people are in that place. And my individual clients, I've had clients go from I wanted a divorce to now I can see what's possible, and their partner didn't even know that they were in coaching. So there's just so much hope, even if you are the one who is into this stuff and your partner is not. So yeah, that's where I would like to leave that.
That is a really, really good note to end on. And what an empowering thing to know that you get to affect the system. So two more things before we wrap. One is I always raise awareness for an organization of guest choice, and you have selected Community is Medicine. So is there a word or two about that organization? What's important to you about it, the type of work that they do? I will also make mention of that in the introduction of the episode as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. So they take donations to provide therapy and support for youth who are at risk, struggling with addiction, experiencing trauma. So they also have like a free anonymous chat line for these kids. And, what we're talking about today is that our adult relationships are impacted greatly by what went on in our childhoods. And if we start getting that support young, then that can shift our entire lives. It can change so much. Because I even think, I started therapy when I was 20. I just think, oh gosh, if I had had someone to talk through this thing with when I was 8, if I had had somebody when I was 12, when I was 16, of course, no regrets, just live my life. And I'm grateful for how it has transpired and what I have learned. And what a beautiful thing for kids to get support, especially if they absolutely do not have that. So it just makes my heart so happy, and it just ripples out into relationships when they're older too.
Beautiful. Well, I'll of course link to that in the show notes. I'll link to Gottman Institute. I'll link to the Center for Thriving Relationships. If there's I'll of course link to everything that you're up to in the world, your website, Instagram, YouTube. And that's a wonderful organization that I will be raising awareness for and donating to. And hopefully everyone who is listening will take part as well. So the final question that I ask in every interview, Lindsay, I don't know if we mentioned this word one time during the interview today, but the podcast is called Mike's Search for Meaning. Right. And I would love to know, in your words, in your own personal worldview, what does it mean to live a meaningful life?
It's funny. I knew you were going to ask this like a month ago, and then I forgot. So we are just going to think about this. When I think meaningful, I think intention. those two words really go together for me. And obviously, I chose loving with intention because it means so much to me. And it is a word that I think about constantly. And a meaningful life for me is choosing. We have choice points a million times a day where the choice that we make can take us closer to the thing that we would love or farther away from the thing that we would love. And in these choice points, if we make those meaningful, intentional choices to move towards how we would love to be and how we show up in the world, then, like, to me, that's a meaningful life. And I think, as someone who was a registered nurse and now a relationship coach, when you were talking about earlier how when I was saying, I would see people in hard relationships and I would be like, there must be a better way. And you were talking about how, oh yeah, I look at that in people in their jobs, like there must be a way to like love your job and be happy. I think of that now as a relationship coach. Yes, there were so many aspects of being a registered nurse that I loved, and it was not my passion. So living a meaningful life for me, a huge part of that is stepping into my passion and just continuing to heal and change patterns and feel the way that I want to feel, and know that it isn't just about me. There's a ripple effect. There is a ripple effect, not just because I'm a relationship coach or because, I make a YouTube video. There's a ripple effect in my relationship. There's a ripple effect in my family. There's a ripple effect in my friends. And that ripple effect goes on and on and on. And to me, that's really meaningful, that the way that I show up and the way that I take care of me actually has a great impact on the people that I love and the world, which is the coolest thing to think about. So I think for me, that's meaningful. That's intentional.
Amen. Well, thank you for creating some of those ripples here with me today. This was I really, as we started with and we will end with, relationships are really the fundamental building blocks of, to me, like one of the fundamental, if not the, of a meaningful life. And so I love that you shared so many practical insights and like really meaningful takeaways that people can use to integrate immediately into their life, to enhance their life from the start, from the second they open their eyes in the morning and wake up. We have the opportunity to meaningfully engage with our partner. And like, that's what was coming to mind as you were talking about ripples, that when we are intentional and choose to behave in a way that is more towards love, that shifts the way that we show up in every next interaction in our life. And so what a profound note to end on. Thank you for bringing all of your gifts with me and our audience today.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you for the amazing questions. And this has just been so much fun.
Well, to everyone who's listening, sending you each lots of love. You have a choice. You can bring intention into your life, and take good care. Thank you for listening. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to listen to Mike's Search for Meaning. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe, share this episode with your friends, and leave a review. I look forward to seeing you next time, my friends. And until then, stay safe, stay well, and keep living with purpose. Peace.